There's probably a special place in hell for what I'm about to do, but hey, here we are. I'm gonna make these look even better than they were before, so let out that breath you've been holding and just trust the process on this one. I thrifted the entire Outlander series thinking, how hard could it possibly be to rebind them all and turn them into beautiful collector's editions? Famous last words. So before I started tearing up the actual books, I needed to make new hardcovers for them. I measured out the dimensions of the books and then cut out new covers and a new spine using chipboard. Then I wrapped everything in polyurethane leather. I glued everything in place using a pH-neutral book glue and then left it to dry in the book press overnight. Then it was time to create the cover art, but before we dive into that, I want to give a brief rundown of what Outlander is for those of you who have not read the books or seen the TV show. Outlander is a story about a woman named Claire. Claire is married to Frank. One day, Claire falls through a time portal where she is transported back to the 1700s and meets Jamie, and thus completes all 3 points of our love triangle. And that's as far as I'm gonna go in terms of the plot because I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't read the book. Okay. Oh my god, I have 2 open cans of soda. I have a problem. It's official. So the inspiration for this is based on a Brandon Sanderson book. It's this one. I like the idea of having Claire and Jamie reaching out to each other, like on this book cover. But then I was also thinking, so I would have Jamie, in one corner, Frank in the other corner, and Claire in the middle. I like the idea of having both Jamie and Frank on the cover of this because it does kind of convey the story a little bit better. So I like the idea of having maybe Claire in the middle, kind of reaching out to Jamie and holding on to Frank too. My only concern is I don't want it to look too diagonal, and for the size of the book, it might be too much. So we'll have to test it out. But basically, this book is the one that's the inspiration for what I'm trying to do. So that's what I'm going to try and do today. So I want to kind of sketch it out a little bit. Claire would be like, right here, reaching out, one hand back like that. And then Frank would be reaching out like this. And then I think Jamie would be reaching out like this. So one thing that I do want to do for this is all of the faces are going to kind of be in silhouette, but that just kind of limits the amount of detail that I have to include. Now I just need to get my iPad out and just find some poses and stuff like that. So yeah, let's get to it. So I started sketching out my ideas for the illustration on the front. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, even though I am rebinding Outlander in this video, I already rebound Dragonfly and Amber. That was kind of my test book because I'd never done bookbinding before. So there are a few elements from my Dragonfly and Amber rebind that I'm going to be using in this one, like filigree around the corners and some detailing on the spine. I want those to be consistent across the entire series so that they look cohesive. So once I had an idea of what I wanted to do, I transferred my sketch into Adobe Illustrator and turned it into line art and then separated it out into layers so that I could cut them out of vinyl later. Here is what I came up with at the end. Now it's time to destroy some books. Whoever thought of non-removable stickers that say, as seen on Netflix or Stars or whatever, you go straight to jail.
Right to jail, right away.
Even though I'm only rebinding Outlander in this video, I took footage of me ripping off the covers of all of the books in the series just for dramatic effect. Now these wouldn't be beautiful collector's editions without gilded pages, so I wanted to achieve that effect using heat transfer foil. In order to do that, I had to sand down the page edges using progressively finer grits of sandpaper until the edges were so smooth they were shiny. To help the process along, I used a power sander for this. once the edges were nice and shiny and smooth, it was time to apply the heat transfer foil. That's pretty easy to do. You just cut the foil down to size and apply it using an iron. I have this mini craft iron that I like to use for this purpose. Now, I will say I have not once ever successfully applied heat transfer foil without it coming out patchy, but I am determined for it not to be patchy this time. Granted, I've only ever rebound 2 books, but neither of them had non-patchy edge gilding, and I am so mad about it, and I am so determined to do it right. So when I pulled up the foil and it turned out patchy despite me laying the foil back down and trying again, I was pretty angry.
Jesus Christ.
When this happens, the only thing you can do is sand it back down and try again. And again.
Oh, come on. Oh.
And again.
Son of a bitch.
Son of a bitch! Son of a bitch! Son of a bitch! Son of a bitch! Son of a bitch!
Okay. I spent all day yesterday trying to get the foil on the edges. I have not once successfully done this. I did try and paint the edges. When I opened it up, like I painted the edges with gold paint, and then when I went to open it up, the paint started flaking off. So that's not an option either. I am getting so frustrated with this, but it's one of these things where I'm like, no, I must get it because I do not fail at things. Today, I think I just need to sand it more. It just needs more sanding. As much sanding as you think it needs more. I'm going to try one more time today. I'm going to try one more time. All right. Let's do it.
Son of a bitch!
I hate this. I hate this so much. I'm failing at this and I don't know why. I'm doing everything that the directions on the foil package said. I'm doing every different thing that all the different tutorials, each tutorial has a little slightly different way of doing it. I tried them all. None of them work. I don't know if it's maybe the foil that I got is just, it's Cricut brand foil. You'd think it'd be good, but maybe not. Or maybe it's like the environment that I live in. I don't know if maybe the environment I live in is too dry. That's always a possibility. It's all of 3% humidity today, so maybe that's impacting it. I don't know, but I hate this. I hate this so much, and I'm not wearing my microphone. Sorry. Ugh.
My backup plan was using gold leaf, so I applied the adhesive, waited the requisite 30 minutes that the bottle said to wait, then started applying the foil. It is really, really fragile, and it gets everywhere. My entire room was like covered in tiny little bits of foil by the time I was done with this.
The glitter and the creepy paper.
Get me some glitter.
I hope this YouTube channel takes off because this is the only way I'd be able to make money and have a personality.
Once I was done applying the gold leaf, I let it sit and cure for 2 whole days. The package said you only need to do it for 24 hours, but just for good measure, just to be safe, I let it cure for 2 whole days before adding the varnish. Then once I added the varnish, I let it sit for another 24 hours after that. That thing should have been dry and sealed and perfect by the time I cracked the pages open. Once the gold leaf was cured, I cut the end papers and attached them, and then fortified the spine using some fabric and some book glue. I also attached a ribbon for the bookmarker and some headbands and an additional piece of fabric just for good measure. This is the point where I made the fatal mistake of not checking to make sure the gold leaf had adhered properly before attaching the text block to the covers. I would find out the next morning exactly why that was a terrible idea.
The next day.
The next morning, I took the book out of the press and cracked the pages open to release the gilding foil. At first, it looked like everything was going well. Then the foil started flaking off. At first, it was a little bit, then it was a little more, until eventually, almost all of the foil came off.
Jesus Christ!
I tried taking a brush to brush off the loose bits of foil, hoping that some of it would stay, but eventually large patches started to form, and it was pretty much unsalvageable. And it was at this point that I started swearing a lot. And then once I was done swearing up a storm and yelling, I started to cry. Now, I wasn't crying just because of the edge gilding. It was the culmination of a lot of really stressful things happening. You know, I'm sure you all know how it is. You can have a lot of terrible things happen, but then something completely unimportant goes wrong and then you're bawling. That was the case here. I started ugly crying because of this. But eventually I pulled myself together and sanded off all of the remaining foil. This is why it was a bad idea to attach the text block to the book before I was ready. I had to figure out how to isolate the pages from the cover so that I could sand them down without damaging the cover. Once I was done sanding down the edges, I applied some gilding wax in a last-ditch effort to try and get those gold pages. This book is going to be mostly a display book, not really a reading book. So if the gilding wax does have a risk of coming off on your fingers, it's not going to be a huge problem. Okay, I'm in my garage and I have an... Oh, geez, I got dust all in my hair. I have an update about the gilding debacle. Turns out it was probably the brand of foil that I was using, because I am now doing Voyager, which is the third book. And yeah, it's a little wrinkly, but overall much better than the other one I was doing. So yeah, it was the foil. But yeah, turned out pretty nice. Yay! With the page edges finally settled, I moved on to the cover art. I cut out my design onto heat transfer vinyl using my die cutting machine. Once the vinyl was ready to go, I removed the excess and then layered it onto the book cover color by color. Most of my footage is just the back of my head because I was hunched over the book the entire time, so here are the best couple bits I could find. And with the cover art all applied, the book was complete. Here's the big reveal. And here it is, Outlander fully rebound. It was messy, it was stressful, and the gold leaf nearly broke me, but I am so happy with the final result. I love the process of bookbinding, and rebinding old used books and giving them new life is something that I find really fun and really rewarding. I would love to get better at this, and then maybe someday down the road I can sell my bookbinding services. But for now, that's 2 books down, 7 to go, and whenever the author publishes the 10th and final book, I will have that one to do too. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And stay crispy, lasagna ghosts. I asked ChatGPT to write me a snarky sign-off, similar to Stay Fresh Cheese Bags, that my favorite podcast ends on, and Stay Crispy Lasagna Ghosts is what it came up with. I actually kind of like it.